As you all know, AI, or at least AI hype, is everywhere. And the anticipated impact that AI is going to have on the workforce is really large. There was a report from OpenAI that they did with the University of Pennsylvania. So OpenAI is the lab that built GPT-4 and ChatGPT and so forth. And they found that using US labor force data, looking at what tasks people actually do in their jobs, they estimated that about 80% of the US labor force is going to have their work tasks changed at least 10%. And about 20% of the people are going to have their work changed at least 50%. And these numbers actually may end up being understatements. So for example, you can now use AI tools to convert speech to text in any language, in any style, convert text to speech in any voice, which is scary, where you can just clone somebody's voice. You can generate images, you can generate text, music, visualizations of all kinds, video, code. You can use AIs to understand natural language, which might be especially relevant for learning leaders, maybe analyzing sentiment analysis. You have 1 million comments left on your learning programs, but have you actually analyzed that? Maybe an AI could do that. We could use AIs to suggest improvements to any of those things above. If we've done it ourselves, so asking for feedback and so forth. AIs can analyze data, they can watch out for and detect anomalies, and crucially, you can also train an AI model to do any other thing that you wanted. And anything that an AI can do, it can do with more speed and breadth and focus than anything any human being could ever muster. Not to say it does it better. That said, AI models are going to continue to learn and improve. Even the ones that are out there already are improving, not to mention the ones that are coming. So what does that mean for us? Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, generative AIs have significant gaps, and it's in those gaps that we can all thrive. And what we'll need is human skills. Okay, so let's start with human skills. And let's think about them through the lens of a lawyer. So law-focused AI tools can now generate contracts or deposition questions. They can review documents and so forth, all within a matter of seconds. In fact, legal services have been described as the industry most exposed to disruption by AI. AIs can take a bunch of work that you might consider busy work, or it's almost like a strategic thing that like an opposing party just dumps all this stuff on you so you can't do the actual valuable work. So you mentioned crafting arguments and presenting those arguments. Maybe lawyers might spend more time face-to-face with clients talking about business decisions. They might spend more time exercising judgment in complex legal matters. So really developing industry expertise, building relationships with clients. These are all things that you might expect. And it might, as you mentioned, also benefit people who are just joining the profession. Okay, so all of those things I mentioned can be broken down into one of the following 6 human skills. And this is true for any role. And we'll talk about how it applies to learning leaders specifically. So there are skills that are hard for current AIs to replicate. So you mentioned like a judge can tell what an AI argument is. Okay, so potentially it's because the argument lacks creativity. So our human skills are things like creativity, so the ability to come up with original ideas and employ them to make improvements. So in general, generative AI tools are going to struggle with creativity because they're limited by their training data, and that makes it hard to make conceptual leaps or come up with something that's really a novel thing. We also have empathy, which is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. And AIs can be programmed to mimic empathy. They don't really have human emotions, and they can't share human feelings. Humans also have presence. That's the ability to command attention based on how you carry yourself, how do you communicate. And because generally current AIs lack bodies, they lack physical presence, right? So a lawyer is going to be doing that argument. They're going to be out there, and with their presence, they're going to be captivating the room, right? And presenting an argument in a particular way, right? We also have self-awareness. So we can check in with ourselves. We can think about, what is it that I really want here? How am I currently behaving? And then I can change based on that check-in. The current crop of AIs don't have consciousness as far as we know. They have no continuous personal history, so they struggle with that self-awareness. The 5th skill, maybe the most important, is judgment. So the ability to determine which course of action best aligns with our goals, and then making decisions based on those judgments. AIs are not human. We may never be able to fully trust an AI to make a decision in our best interests. Okay. And then lastly, there's dexterity, which maybe doesn't apply to a lot of you, but humans do have the ability to perform a wide variety of physical tasks that require fine motor skills. So think about plumbers, electricians, and so forth. Robotics is a little bit behind some of these other developments. And so dexterity is this other crucial human skill that AIs can't replicate. Note, these are all kind of basic human abilities, but the reason we can call them skills is they can be applied in a skillful way to a task, and we can actually get better at these things outside any context. You can learn to become more creative in general or more empathetic in general. It's hard, but that's what makes it worth it. Okay, so assuming this list does not shrink on us too much, if it shrinks down, we're gonna all pack our bags and go home together, and no one's gonna be doing work. But this list holds for now. So these things are human skills. And if you look at something like coaching, so we had mentioned that earlier, right? So there are currently chatbots that you can use to coach you, and they're good because they're always on, they're really goal-oriented, they're programmed to be polite, patient, and supportive no matter how many times you yell at them. And they're free or very cheap. So you can actually even have like multiple of these AI coaches if you wanted. Of course, what they lack is human skills. So a human's coach might have creativity to suggest new approaches, or would have empathy to really understand what you're going through. Or maybe it's really important for your coach to have a presence that comforts you or inspires you or motivates you. A coach might have self-awareness to approach the conversation with you in different ways depending on the context. And a human coach, you can trust them to make recommendations that align with your goals. And note, we can take something like coaching. Okay, yeah, coaching, that's a human thing. But we can really apply these human skills to any task, almost any task, to create additional value. So we're going to go into breakout rooms for a moment. What I'd like you to think about is one of kind of three approaches. One approach is you can choose for yourself one or two signature skills that you want to focus on that apply to any task when relevant. So you may find that what you really excel at already is something like empathy. And maybe there's a way to apply empathy to just about any task you do. Or instead of starting by thinking about skills, you can just take any task that comes across your plate and then reflect on whether you can do it better by utilizing one of the human skills. So you can do a mental checklist. Here's this task I have. Can I add value by doing this more creatively? Or what would it mean to be more empathetic here, or have more presence or better judgment or more self-awareness? Even seemingly completely automated processes might end up relying on human judgment at the end, in the last mile, to check in and see, did everything go well, using judgment or using empathy or something to approve work that's being done by an AI. Lastly, you can also just find a small handful of tasks that you do as a learning leader. I'm assuming all of you are like that because of the class title, but some of you maybe aren't. And there might be some specific tasks that you do that really would benefit from extra human skills that you currently can't apply them to because you're too busy doing other things that maybe an AI can help you with. One thing about these human skills is that they're not really going to save us if we continually go head to head against AIs. So even with coaching, right? That was like the example. It's like such an obvious example. That's a human thing, right? AIs aren't going to coach us. But if you want to be coached in something that no one around you knows about, it doesn't matter that that person is creative or whatever. If I wanted to ask Kira to teach me about bass fishing and to be my bass fishing coach, Kira might be an excellent coach, but her lack of knowledge of bass fishing is going to be the deciding factor in me choosing an AI over her, right? We don't want to compete against AIs, even if we are very creative. Also for the reason that from now on, we're not really competing against an AI. You're always going to be competing if you're competing against AIs. And there are many different ones trained in different ways with different resulting capabilities. And remember, they're highly goal-oriented. They're relatively cheap to run compared to the cost of an employee, and they're willing to work 24/7. okay, we can't beat them, so we might as well join them. And that's going to be the best result. And that's the model that I want you to come away from this class with, both thinking about yourself and thinking about your organization. So when we're working on anything, a task, a problem, whatever, we can take our knowledge, which is made up of best practices and situational knowledge. Situational knowledge is partially, it could be tacit knowledge that you've accumulated as an expert. It might also just be like contextual knowledge that, like, if I'm trying to sell a product to this person, maybe I know that Jerry here, he used to work with us for this many years and he had this feedback and whatever. That's part of our situational knowledge that helps make us more effective when applying it to a task. We also have these signature skills, our human skills that we can apply: empathy, creativity, presence, self-awareness, judgment, dexterity. And we also have some resources. We might have some money to throw around. We might have some non-AI tools that we use all the time that might over time become AI tools, right? So if you use Slack or Asana or whatever, probably those tools are going to have some AI features coming soon. And we can combine all of our whole capability structure, our knowledge, our skills, and our resources, and we can combine it with AI's capabilities. So AIs also have some knowledge that's based on training data and learned parameters. As part of training, a lot of AIs go through something called RLHF, which is reinforcement learning through human feedback. And so that kind of tunes the model, and that becomes part of the knowledge base of a given model. And there are skills that emerge from that. So skills like recognition and classification and ranking and prediction, which generally AIs will do much better, much faster than humans. And AIs are powered by infrastructure, APIs, processing power, and those are things that matter. So if we want like a really capable API, we're going to have to think about the infrastructure that it's running on, or what APIs are available and so forth. But this is a general model of collaboration, both for you as an individual and for the organization. So you might see things moving forward like this. On a given project, you may have multiple AIs doing most of the work, and then a person comes in the last mile, applies some human skill like judgment to maybe approve or improve the output. Or maybe you'll have a big project and you're working together with multiple AIs, and then multiple people, you're collaborating together. The work is roughly evenly split. Or in a lot of cases, you'll just have one person, they're using an AI tool to help them do 20% of their task or 40% or whatever it is, and then the human takes it from there. Or really any other combination you can imagine. And if you scale this up, it's the future of the organization where you have humans and AIs collaborating in configurations that make sense for a particular task or project, then disbanding and then getting reconfigured. And just like the internet took literally decades for every business that would benefit from the internet to get a website and have an online business model, right? It's going to take years for companies and individuals to adopt this technology en masse, which means that if you use it at all, you could gain an immediate advantage. And especially if you start thinking in these ways of how can I create these kinds of configurations, you can also get an immediate advantage. So what does this actually look like to get an edge now? What can you do right now? There are 3 questions I think you should ask for any task from now on. How could I use an AI tool to do this more efficiently? How could I use an AI tool to do this better? And how can I apply human skills to do this better? And for now, your answer to question 1 or 2 is often going to lead you to enter a prompt into a generative AI tool. So we're in the age of prompt engineering, which is currently the best way to get started augmenting your capabilities using AI. So a really good resource for that is located here. This website, your URL is just prompts.chat. So just, you can open it up, take a look through it. I'll even pop it up here. So it gives you some ideas for what you can do with a chatbot. You can act as this, as a debater, debate coach, AI writing tutor, UX developer. It literally has hundreds, maybe thousands of these ideas. Python interpreter, something's going to be relevant to your role. And if you want, you can maybe Apple F for things that are related to learning. Maybe you can find something that way. This is a good, prompts.chat is a good resource, but I like to think it's a good kind of scaffold to kind of get things started for you. But I think it's important to graduate from that to just really getting clear about what you need and what will help you do the best work and how you want to collaborate. For example, being really clear when you enter into a chatbot, what is it that you want right now? And you can ask for lots of things. You can ask for an idea or feedback or a rough draft or information or a summary. You can even upload a PDF and say, summarize this PDF or extract information or analyze it, right? So what is it that we want? And here we're going to use our skill of self-awareness to really identify that and be honest about what we lack. It often helps to add as well, how much of it do you want? So give me 5 ideas or 500 words or 3 steps. Sometimes it helps to add also, what's your overall goal here? I'm creating this presentation that's like this and this, and I want some ideas for this, but this is part of my larger program that has this goal and so forth. Sometimes it makes sense to add that context. And then often when you're trying to write something for public consumption, you might want it written in a particular style or tone just to get you started. And you can use this as a way of thinking about things, but don't overthink it because you can always ask for more information later. Something really cool came out or is coming out for ChatGPT. It's available now for pro users, but it's coming out in the next few weeks. It's called custom instructions. And here it allows you in your profile to let ChatGPT know about yourself and the kinds of answers that you want. For example, I'm in the field of learning technology and so forth. And from now on, anytime I put in a prompt, this information is added automatically as context to that prompt. So ChatGPT knows that I'm in the field of learning technology. So often I'll get a response that's, oh, and by the way, this is applicable to learning technology in these ways, even though I didn't ask for it. I also like to say, explain your reasoning as you go. That's just something that I like. So there are things that you can do with these custom instructions where you can even put in directions for steps that you want ChatGPT to take. So it might give you like code, and then you can ask it to save that code to a particular type of file and so forth. So you can do a lot of different stuff. And this is just the tip of the iceberg of what's coming in terms of personalization and contextualization. Okay, so let's take a moment to reflect now. So from the perspective of a learning leader, an L&D leader, these are different things that you might do in your job, right? Or different responsibilities you might have. Build your learning team, set goals for your team, measure learning, right? If you do all these things, I don't need to tell you this, right? It's stuff that's on your mind. Let's have, just for a moment, let's everyone try to come out with your best idea. How might you approach one of these responsibilities differently now by using an AI tool? What could you do that you might want to try or that you might recommend for other people to try? And remember, AIs can do all of these things, right? And some of these are really broad, analyzing data, suggesting improvements, right? This could mean anything. Imagine using an AI to look through all of your performance reviews and all of the text that was generated from the performance reviews done annually or biannually in your organization, and the AI tool identifies common issues that could be addressed with training. Something you could not possibly do as an individual because there's so much to analyze. A general disposition that I think makes sense to have when you're thinking about things like that is tinkering. So a lot of the current way of doing things, it's weird, it's stupid. This whole prompt engineering thing is really silly. It's a lot of trial and error, especially if you've used, like, I'm really good at using chatbots. I'm really bad at using the image generation tools. Like, I just can't get Midjourney to do what I want, right? It's easy to get stuck. It's easy to be like, oh, this is so annoying, I'm not going to use it. But if it's hard or it's weird, that means someone else is going to stop at that point, and you have an opportunity through your commitment to create value for yourself, value for your organization. So having this tinkering mindset is going to be really important right now, with the knowledge that over time, prompt engineering is going to go away because our AI tools will be customized for each role. They will be embedded in our HR systems, our project management systems, our team communication systems. You will need to provide much less content because AI tools will already know the context. So that AI tool will know all about you, all about your coworkers, all about the work that you're doing together. And some of these solutions are going to be built in-house with your help. So how can you thoughtfully integrate AI into your organization? and not just use it for yourself, because you're learning leaders and you have other people to worry about as well. So the first thing to think about is people are really afraid. Probably some of you have felt that fear yourselves. So signaling to your team or helping senior leadership signal to the team that our people and human skills in the organization are really important. And that's how we create value for our customers. And we're going to use AI tools to make ourselves more efficient so we can deliver more value to the customer. We're not using AI tools to replace people and race to the bottom or something. We're using AI tools to enable people to flourish and deliver this additional value through this AI and human collaboration. Ideally, that is the point of view of your company. And if not, maybe that's something that you can influence. Modeling is also going to be really important. So you acting as a role model, you being the tailor, the tinker and the tailor in view of your team, and reporting on results to them, saying, hey, this is what I did this quarter with generative AI, and these are the results I got, and this is what I think will make sense for you to do now. And lastly, acting as a coach or helping managers act as coaches, because the number one fear is AI going to take my job. People are legitimately freaking out. I was really stressed out for many months before I learned a little bit more about this, and helping people adapt to this change and talking to them, just being there to listen potentially. One kind of silver lining for people is that even if AI does most of the work, we'll still find a way to take credit. I saw this incredible post on Reddit. Oh boy, you're right, at least for now, but not sure for how long. I'm from naval engineering and architecture. FYI, automation is really moving so fast. Prior to this AI thing, to build mapping and making a layout of ships were done manually with 3D software. Just reflect on that phrase for a second. Done manually with 3D software. Like, you're not churning butter here. There's no manual work anymore, right? So as soon as the technology comes in, we're just like, yeah, that's a resource. Yeah, okay, I did some part of it, but the part that's really good is the part that I added, right? So that's our mentality as humans. It's cute and probably helpful for us, but that's one way where fears might be alleviated once these things actually make their way into the org. So secondly, besides helping your team navigate AI through signaling, modeling, coaching, be really wary of AI tech risks. Quality is a big thing. AIs hallucinate all the time, meaning they confidently give you an answer that is actually completely wrong. So you may be aware of, there's at this point, a famous case of a lawyer who had some citations to cases that weren't real, and the judge castigated him for it in some way or censured him. I don't know what happened. I think there's probably some professional consequence, or at least he's very embarrassed. So we have to be really careful about the content that is being put out and if it's correct. AIs may have bias in ways that we don't really understand. And there are some reasons to believe that if you really care about bias, AIs may actually end up being much less biased than human beings. We can program AIs with DIV lessons that they actually take seriously. So and you can figure out if there's some problem and maybe retrain an AI, but that's at least of some concern, and people do talk about it a lot. The third thing to be wary of is data privacy and compliance issues. And this was the point that Tina made. So you're Samsung engineer, you put in all your code. Oh, now it's available to OpenAI, right? So we need to be really careful about what we're putting in. We're not compromising the privacy of our customers, and there are some ways to do that. I'll show you in a second. There are legal issues with AI in certain industries. So you're going to have to be aware of what that is, or maybe having to do with your role. There may even be some customer backlash eventually, where if customers know that you did something using AI, they're going to be really upset in some cases. And there are other things that are relevant to your specific role or your industry. Speaking about data privacy, you can opt out of having your conversations with ChatGPT be used to train the model. So in your settings, you can actually turn off the ability for ChatGPT to train on your information. That's one way that you can protect yourself. There are similar data controls, I think, for other tools. Just note the ChatGPT one doesn't port from one computer to another, I think. So if you use ChatGPT on your phone, you have to turn that setting on separately and then from when you use it on your computer. Okay, bring in vendors that you trust. So you're going to help your organization adjust by coaching, modeling, signaling. You're going to be really wary of risks. And if you do bring in vendors to help you through the process of improving the capabilities of your team, you want to be really smart about the questions you ask. And I put these questions are from a Burson report called Understanding AI in HR. And they're here available for you if you want to take a look. These are just some of them, but I recommend that you take a look at that report.